Welcome to Comics with Dan, and in this video we're going to be talking with Kyle Higgins at Baltimore Comic-Con. He's the creator of the entire Massiverse, specifically Radiant Black, writer of No One, and has also written Nightwing and Batman for DC. So we're going to talk to him mostly about No One, and I really hope you all enjoy.
All right. All right, right here we've got Kyle Higgins. All right, Kyle is on everything. He is on Radiant Black. He has done Batman, Nightwing. He is on Supermassive, the Massiverse in general, right? So we've got all kinds of great stuff here. Possibly my favorite has been No One. So yeah. I lived in Pittsburgh for about 10 years before I moved back out in this direction.
Okay.
So what made you choose Pittsburgh for a location for No One?
A couple of reasons. One, it's important to me that as we keep every book in the Massiverse really kind of defined as its own thing, that we take advantage of placing each book in a different city most of the time. So like Radiant Black is in Chicago and like the Northwest Indiana area and the Southwest suburbs.
Yeah.
but it's like Chicago area.
Yeah.
Rogue Sun is New Orleans. Dead Lucky is San Francisco. So when it came time to do No One, and this, not to make it simplistic, but it is kind of our Batman-esque series of the Massiverse. So the right city that had the right tone, feel, and character was important to me. I already set Radiant Black in Chicago. I didn't want to do No One in New York. It didn't feel right. I really like Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has that. It has a very unique personality to it. It felt like the right kind of place to set this story. The bridges, the architecture, how dense the downtown area and the buildings are. The other thing was that from the get-go, the plan on No One was to be this multi-narrative project. So there's the comic, and then there is the in-universe podcast that we do as a scripted audio series with Rachel Lee Cook and Patton Oswalt and everyone. Then at San Diego, we just announced the feature film that I'm directing, and that film is a documentary. It's in kind of a found footage model that I'm doing along with Brian Buccellato, of course. Brian and I are writing it. We're producers on it. I'm directing. Steven Schneider from Paranormal Activity, Insidious, Late Night with the Devil, he's producing it as well. So the whole thing is being produced and funded by ZQ Entertainment, who are our partners on the podcast, and as well as Stuart Manishill, who is EPing this. And the reason I'm saying all this is because it was the plan from the get-go to do a movie.
Okay.
So figuring out a city that aesthetically and also logistically would be viable to potentially shoot the movie in, that was something that I was planning from the concept stage. So Pittsburgh makes a lot of sense there as well. It's a place that has been photographed in a lot of movies, in several Batman movies too. So it was the totality of kind of all of those aspects that ultimately made it a pretty easy choice.
No, and I mean, that was actually one of my follow-ups was the plan to do a movie all along. And it makes sense because if I recall correctly, you studied film in school, and I think even Cal was originally a film that you wrote. Is that right?
Yeah, Cowl is based on my college thesis film, which is called The League, about a superhero labor union in 1960 Chicago. It's a big superhero noir we did. It's like 30 minutes long, tons of visual effects, shot on film, tons of, choreography, wire work, like the whole 9 yards. That's the film that started my career. Joe Quesada, who was the editor-in-chief at Marvel at the time, he saw it, reached out to me. I started pitching to Marvel. I was like 23. I've had this comics career I've been doing comics full-time for like 14 years at this point. But at the same time, I've always had this film side of my life and have either been writing screenplays that people don't know about or working on jobs people don't know about, and trying to get my first feature for a long time. So this was something that was important to me to always design to basically facilitate a first feature film in a really outside the box way. And so, yeah, so this is just kind of, this project in particular, like really kind of brings together like a lot of my interests. I was a sound editor for many years before comics, worked in post-production for a long time. Like I've been shooting and directing stuff since I was a kid, and editing and doing all sorts of post-production stuff since I was a teenager. Yeah.
Nice. No, and I love the relation between movies and comics, because you can almost look at a comic as sort of a storyboard for a movie. You know, it's like you're seeing the panels, and as it goes along. I want to hear what you say, because that's the.
I think that's like I understand what you're saying there.
Yeah.
I personally feel like that is a little too reductive and dismissive to the comic as a medium. A comic book is different from a movie. A comic book is not just storyboards for a movie.
Yeah.
The medium itself and how you approach the medium and how you tell a story in it is different from a movie.
Okay.
Pacing in comics is different from pacing as a screenplay. There are things you can do in comics that you can only do in comics that you can't do in live action. The reading experience, where you're putting your page turn reveals, that's something that you can only do in a comic, right? And you have to write to take advantage of that. The way that time works in comics is different from in a film. For example, in a movie, if you want things to feel fast, quick cuts are a way that things feel faster. In comics, the more panels you have on a page, the slower the reading experience is. So it's the inverse relationship. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like a lot of the reason I bristle a little bit when you say it is only because it really bothers me when writers, and especially writers that don't do comics like full time or don't approach it in the manner that I believe it deserves, which is with respect. It's frustrating when people try to come do comics all the time. We're like, well, I just want to do this to try to get a movie made, and like this is basically me doing storyboards for the movie, and it's like that is the wrong. First of all, good luck. It's not going to work.
Right.
So many people tried it, and it never works. Like the book has to work on its own as a book, and it has to be a good book for any of the other stuff to be possible.
Right.
And if you're doing the book just as hopefully a springboard to the other stuff, it shows, and it never works.
Yeah. Well, and I think you see a lot of that now with some series that are coming out. I'm not going to name any series because I'm not going to be. But people want the, Something is Killing the Children just got optioned, right? That was a good book on its own from the start. It happens to work, seemed like it would work well, but, I think you're right. I think that there's lots of people that want to just use it as a springboard to get into the movies. But especially with the number of panels, it's a really good point that I hadn't really thought of before.
Yeah.
So one other thing, and then I'm going to connect some strings here, right?
Okay.
So we have the podcast, which I love the podcast for No One, and who voiced No One on the podcast was Loren Lester.
Yeah.
And did you get to meet Loren?
Yeah, Lauren's a very good friend of mine.
That's awesome, because Loren is also Dick Grayson.
That's how we know each other.
That's how. So how do you know each other then? So I want to hear this, because I love Batman the Animated Series. Who doesn't? So I'd love to hear this.
Well, Loren and I met when about a decade ago at this point, when I was writing Nightwing for the New 52.
Right.
2011, 2012, somewhere in there. I reached out to him because I was a big fan of, obviously, Batman the Animated Series. We met up and really hit it off. I've cast him in everything I've shot since then. I have a short film that I did a few years ago called The Shadow Hours, and Loren has a really good part at the end that I wrote specifically for him. Very, very dear friend, super talented actor, has been crazy supportive of me over the years. Part of why I reached out was because I was actually putting together, and I did, an animated trailer for a pitch to Warner Brothers Animation to try to get a Gates of Gotham animated movie going.
Nice.
It didn't end up, I had meetings, it didn't end up going, but Loren was nice enough to voice Dick Grayson as Batman for that trailer. And so, that's
so awesome. That's so cool. All right. Well, I really appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much. everyone go check out all different books, all the Massiveverse. Check out Cal, which is in the Massiveverse. But anything else you want to talk about coming up?
No, I mean, Moon Man with Kid Cudi. Kid Cudi, that issue 4 is coming out. Well, I think one of the covers came out this week, but apparently there was a paper shortage at the printer, so the other covers are coming out next week, depending on when this airs.
Yeah.
That's been a lot of fun. We've got some big plans for New York Comic-Con. If you're going to New York, make sure you sign up for our newsletter. You can go to blackmarket.la/newsletter or just blackmarket.la and you'll find the newsletter tab there. We do all sorts of cool, limited edition covers and releases and things like that through the newsletter. But it's also the best place to stay up to date for the No One movie, the upcoming big Radiant Black audiobook that we're doing with Will Friedle and Ryder Strong and Troy Baker and just this monster cast list that's going to be very, very cool. And I think that's pretty much everything right now. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah,
all
my
right.
pleasure.
Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like the video and subscribe. Check out my other videos from Baltimore Comic-Con coming this week. If you want to know what's going to be coming, check out my intro video that I did posted yesterday. I'll have a link to it in a card here. So thanks, everyone.